In this video, we're going to compare home loans and we're going to talk about the differences like terms and interest rates and how those can impact how much a person pays over the life of the loan and their monthly payment. So typically mortgage interest rates, like all loans, change. And so it just depends on what's going on in the world, the season that we're in. So over the last 50 years, rates have typically varied from as low as 3%, sometimes even a little bit lower than that, all the way up to as much as 17%. And so mortgages with shorter terms, like 15 years versus 30, they come with several advantages. So typically the interest rates are lower when you have a shorter term because it's an advantage to the bank. They're getting your money sooner. They don't have to, you're not taking as long to pay off your home. Total interest paid is typically lower because you pay interest for a shorter period of time, for fewer years. The downside to having a lower interest rate is that the monthly payment is typically higher because you're paying back the full loan over a shorter amount of time. So it's just being divided up amongst, a fewer number of months. So let's look at an example where we compare the loan that we looked at in the last video. So the Villanueva family has a $274,900 home. They made a 20% down payment, and I just wrote here what the principal, we figured that out in the last video. We figured out that the principal ended up being $219,920 after that down payment was taken off. In the last example, the rate was 5.6% for 30 years. In this example, we have a 15-year mortgage with a rate of 4.75%. So there you go. There's your typical, lower rate because the term is lower as well. And so what is the total cost? So we found the monthly payment and total cost with the last example. Now let's look at what happens when we change the term and make it shorter and then the rate's a little bit less. Let's see what happens in terms of the payment and then the total cost. So we're going to use the monthly payment formula just like we did before. Only instead of that previous rate of 5.6%, I'm going to put 0.0475. So that would be the decimal equivalent of 4.75% divided by 12. And then divided by 1 minus 1 plus 0.0475 divided by 12 to the negative 12 times, now in this case I'm going to use a different color just so we can see here, times 15. So the term has now changed also. So you've got the rate and the term. So if you've got a TA 34 or 30, you can use that fraction button. So 219,920 times, hit that fraction button again, 0.0475. Down arrow 12 and then to the right and that parenthesis and then down arrow to get to the denominator, 1 minus parenthesis 1 plus fraction button 0.0475 down arrow 12 and then the right arrow to get out of that fraction and the parenthesis and raise it to the negative. Make sure you press the negative button and not the subtraction button. Negative 12 times 15 power, and you can use parentheses here or multiplication symbol, either way. And so we get a monthly payment of $17.10 and then 61. We want to round to the nearest cent, which is 2 numbers after the decimal place, so that 0 becomes a 1 since there's a 7 after it. So this is the monthly payment. And let me show you real quick. Feel free to fast forward if you have this type of calculator and you've got it. But if not, you could also, if you don't have a fraction button, you could just type 219,920 and then times 0.0475 divided by 12. So just use the divided by sign where you see that fraction. And then you write down the numerator. I like to do these separately. I find I make less mistakes when I do it this way rather than, you can put this all in it in one step even if you have a scientific calculator, but I find this is easier. So the denominator, I'm just going to push 1 minus parenthesis 1 plus 0.0475 divided by 12 and parenthesis and then raise to the negative 12 times 15, or you can do negative 12 times 15 ahead of time and just write down that answer. And so then I write down the denominator. I don't round at all until the very end. Okay, so now I punch those both in. So 870.51666, whoops, too many sixes, go back there, 7, divided by, now you could type this all in or press second and that answer button, which is typically on most scientific calculators and graphing calculators. And we get the same monthly payment that we did before. So either way, same monthly payment. And so now we want to find the total cost. So to find the total cost, we think about everything this family has paid here. So they paid a down payment, and we figured that out from the last problem just by multiplying 0.20 times the total cost. We ended up calculating the down payment of $54,980. So that's the down payment plus the monthly payment times 12 months a year times 15 years. So now keep in mind that when you're calculating the total cost, when we did it for 30 years, there was a 30 here because they made 30 payments. Now they're only making 15. So yes, the monthly payment is higher. So that could be a deal breaker if this family can't afford that monthly payment, but they're only paying it for 15 years, which is awesome. So $54,980 plus 171061 times 12 times 15. And you can use multiplication symbols. I don't know why I tend to use parentheses, but parentheses and multiplication sign will both multiply, so it doesn't matter which one you use. And then we get a grand total of 362,898. So I can put some commas here, $362,889.80. So it sounds like a lot of money, but let's compare that to the previous total. So it's kind of crazy. Look at the difference. So with the 30-year loan at 5.6%, the total cost is $509,483.60, whereas with a 15-year loan and a smaller rate, you're at $362,889.80. So a huge difference. And if we want to know the savings, all we have to do is subtract. So we can take the larger number, the 509,483.60, and subtract 362,889.80, and we can figure out the difference. So 509,483.60 minus 362.8, actually that's not a point, let me go back, it's a comma. So 362,889, that's what I get for going too fast, 0.80. There we go. Okay, so I get a savings of $146,593.80. That is huge. And so what this family should do is think about, okay, is it worth, if I could find, there's about $500 worth of difference here in their monthly payment, just approximately. So if they could approximately, come up with $500 more a month to spend on their home, in the end, they would save $146,593.80. So as always, if you have any questions, just feel free to reach out to your instructor.